Okay, hello again. Wanted to make this video for a little while and I think I'm finally in a decent position to do it. Are Rough Riders any good? Because a lot of people have this conception that Rough Riders are really poorly made knives. They're just cheap, they're crap, they break easily, they're no good, they're not a real knife. These are all things that have been said about Rough Riders. And I'll be really honest with you, I also thought those exact same things. I used to think they were crap. Until you get a few and you realise they're actually extremely good knives, especially for the money. Now, Rough Rider kinda has two brands under the name Rough Rider. I'm not talking about the difference between this and the spelling. I think Rough Rider and the Rider, they used to spell it Rider. I've just seen that pointed out in other YouTube channels. I'm not talking about that. There is Rough Rider and there is now Rough Rider Reserve. In fact, you can see it here on this cloth. I do have two of the Rough Rider Reserves. The rest are not Rough Riders. Now, we're not going to just look at Rough Riders. There's a couple of other knives here that are different brands, but I think they're made in the exact same factory. If I'm not mistaken, the parent company of Rough Rider is Smoky Mountain Knife Works. I don't know enough about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I will say though, this knife right here, this is a Queen, not a real one. This is one of the new Chinese made ones. I believe Queen used to be made in the US until they went bust or something like that, and they basically got bought over by the same company that owns Rough Rider. So I get most of my knives from Heine Haynes. I got this one from Heine Haynes, it was 20 quid. And you get the exact same knife, and it's literally the exact same with subtle differences, branded by or branded under the name Rough Rider. So I'm fairly sure that they're made in the same factory, although this one is a little bit nicer than most Rough Riders. And I also have this one here, which is branded under Marbles. I'm not sure if they're owned by the same company as Rough Rider and Case. I've got a feeling that they probably are. If not, they're probably made in the same factory. I'm sure someone in the comments will eventually, most likely, let me know. So that's those two out of the way. So those I'm including anyway, and I guess we're just looking at our Chinese made knives any good, because that's one of the big off-putting things about these. Now, before I go any further talking about this, I would just like to recommend another channel to you, one that I've been watching a little bit here and there in the last week or so. Mark Kaufman. Now, I've been watching him. He's got a lot of traditional knives on his channel, and I've been quite interested watching some of his videos on the Rough Rider knives. So I would like to recommend you to, if you've not already, go and check him out. He did a video on a 6-bladed Stockman by Rough Rider. I thought that was a really interesting knife. I think I've seen it for sale here in the UK a long time ago, and after watching Mark's video, I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting it. As well as a knife that he did a video on. It was basically an adjustable spanner, but it was also a knife. In the same fashion, it had the jigged bone. I think Mark is actually collecting the older discontinued Rough Riders, so it was really interesting to watch that. Mark doesn't know I'm shouting him out. I just thought his videos were really interesting. So if you like Rough Riders and you want to know more about it, I would like to point you in his direction. Further to that, actually, Big Red EDC, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure there was a little period of time where I was absolutely hooked on watching his videos. I think it was an older video of his, but he had a lot of Rough Riders, and I was just fascinated. In fact, after watching his video, I really just wanted to go and buy so many Rough Riders. But anyway, those two guys aside, my take on Rough Rider. So we're not looking at any particular knife. we're just going to look at my collection of Rough Riders overall, and I think this is all of them, although that's not mine, that belongs to the girlfriend. And we do have one that's hiding here in a corner. This is the only Rough Rider fixed blade I have. We will talk about that. But as the video title suggests, if I name it that, are Rough Riders any good? And well, I've been collecting Rough Riders almost for as long as I've been collecting knives. I think I've been collecting knives somewhere around 6 to 10 years. I can't actually remember how long. Let's just go with 8 just because reasons. I wouldn't say some of my very first knives were Rough Riders, but I did get this one here quite early on, and I kind of liked it, but I kind of didn't. It does have that kind of Chinesey feel and quality to it, but let's be real here. This is a really good value knife for money, and it's a rather unusual knife, and that's one of the things I'd like to mention about Rough Rider, is they'll do that. They'll make unusual, uncommon, weird knives. They're not afraid to do that, and they offer it at prices where it's actually really affordable. This is their cotton sampler. It's the very first or maybe the second knife I ever bought from Rough Rider. I paid £20 for this. We've got some sort of bone handle with well, it's dyed, of course. In fact, I've just realised that brass is a bit tarnished. Maybe I should polish it up at some point. 20 quid. It is a Chinese made knife, but it is really nice. It is well made. It's rather unusual. There's not many companies that offer these, but for one of these made in the States by one of the reputable companies, you're probably looking at probably £200 at least. This is an absolute tiny fraction of that. So maybe you want to buy a knife like that, but you can't justify spending £200, or you wouldn't want to use a knife that you spent £200 on. I sure as hell wouldn't. Or you just want to try it out, it's just for a collection piece, or you just don't have that money. These are fantastic. I can't find any other companies that are making knives like this, especially at these prices. And again, look, it's not perfect, there's some gaps, but let's be real. For 20 quid, and I think these are actually handmade, or at least hand assembled, and again, in China, take it as you will. I understand if you don't like that, because I can't really say I'm a big fan of that either. Again, not because I don't like the Chinese or anything like that, but well, you know the reasons why. What else shall we look at? Let me just pick one out at random. Let's just go with this one. So this is one of those knives, and it is a lock knife. It's not mine, it's the girlfriend's. She just bought it because, well, I think she thought it was cute. By the way, most of these I've already done videos on, and if not, I'm gonna do videos on them. I think there's only 2 or 3, maybe 4 here that I haven't done a video on yet. I have made a video on this one, but this is a little lock back. It is a cute little non-threatening knife, although we can't carry it without a good reason, unfortunately. That is a really deep red, and it looks absolutely marvellous. I think these are about £15 from HH. Again, it's one of those knives that I've been dismissing for a long time, until the girlfriend got it, and I was absolutely blown away by it. I kind of want to steal it from her. I'm obviously not gonna. Once she got it, I kind of felt like buying myself one, but then again, she's got one, so if ever I did want to use it, I could just borrow it off her. It wouldn't be a problem. It's a lovely little knife for the money. For less than £15, you absolutely cannot go wrong. It's definitely not a hard use beater knife, but it certainly is a beautiful functional knife that, let's be honest, shouldn't scare people too much. It's comfortable, it takes up no space in the pocket. As I said, it is a lock back. The only complaint about this, well, there's 2 complaints, and I did discuss this on the video I made about it. When you first get it, it was really gritty. It was kind of not too pleasant to open and close. It's just because dust and metal shavings were kind of stuck in the action. What do you expect for a cheap knife? Other than that, it's beautifully made. There's not really much to complain about. There is a slight crack there. Look, big whoop again. It's a cheap knife, you get what you pay for. I don't think that's even worth complaining about. But it was a bit gritty. Look, expect to work on these a little bit. I did have to spend a few hours with it, but I mean, I was just watching YouTube while I was doing that. So I just put some oil in there and continuously opened and closed it, and that flushed all the grit out. And I just kept wiping it away and adding more oil until we've got this. Now it's not buttery smooth as most people would put it, but it is a lot more pleasant to use now. What else should we look at? This is probably one of the worst examples that I own from Rough Rider. I think this is the second one that I bought from them. This is one of their camp style knives. But again, it wasn't expensive. It was 20 quid. Now, I'm not so sure that bone looks too nice. That said, it has grown on me. I've done a video on this as well. You can see some issues there, but again, it's a cheap knife. It's 20 quid. It does look nice. And I would almost say it's heavy duty. Maybe not heavy duty, but perhaps not light duty. So it's a traditional camp knife, or American style camp knife. We'll just go with that. With a spear main blade. And that's about the only thing that's easy to function. We do have a can opener, which is a little bit stiff to get out. I've had this knife for a long time. I've barely carried it because it's too stiff and uncomfortable to use. It's a hit or a miss with Rough Rider, but I do think their quality has improved. So I've got an old style can opener, which I guess could double as a second knife. And we have an awl, which I sometimes have trouble getting out. I sometimes break my fingernails on it. Speaking of breaking things, the very first time I went to use this awl on a piece of wood, the tip sort of bent and snapped off. It was extremely fine, an extremely fine tip. I didn't repair it because it didn't need it. It just needed a little bit of a sharpening and a strop. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, that is just as pointy. I mean, that's how it should be. It really didn't need to be as pointy as it was. That's definitely very functional. That will do just fine. Poking a hole in drywall to put a screw in, or using on wood or leather. And the final tool is the biggest pain in the ass to get, and I've kind of got to jam it open with my thumb, and that is this screwdriver cap lifter, which I've never felt the need to use it, but I'm sure it'll be absolutely functional. And of course we've got a bail. I've got to be honest, I don't ever see me carrying this, at least not very much. I would like to buy more of these just because I like them. They're just fun to collect. What else do we have? This is one that I was really wanting when I first seen it, and all the knife EDC people on YouTube are talking about these. Now this is one that I've put my own thumb stud on. It's not a quick thumb stud, it's just a Chinese copy, but it's a fraction of the price, and to be honest, it's outrageous how expensive the real ones are. So this is the denim, what's this called, the Rough Rider denim work knife or something to that effect. I think these are about 25 or maybe 35 pounds, I can't remember exactly, but wow, what a lovely wee knife for the money. It's a really nice sway back pattern with that fantastic Wharncliffe blade, and I absolutely love the swedge on it. It looks a little bit strange where the nail nick is. Doesn't bother me too much, I suppose. It's got a really nice grind to it. Sharpness, could be better. The tip feels a little off to me. I'm not really sure why. I wouldn't say it's blunt. You could certainly poke with that. Maybe it's just slightly rounded. I don't know. I love this knife though. I am so glad I got it, and I'm glad it's got a lanyard hole, because a little string of leather would look quite nice there. And of course we've got that absolutely beautiful denim micarta. Not as nice as some of these other ones, mind you, but this is a fraction of the cost of those. Let us just dive into something a little bit deeper. So this is the first Rough Rider Reserves. As I was saying before, Rough Rider kind of comes under two names, Rough Rider and Rough Rider Reserve. At least that's how I interpret it, because if you go into Heine Haynes and you go to brand, click R, go into R, they've got Rough Rider and Rough Rider Reserve. I suppose that's similar to how Boker has Boker, Boker Plus and Magnum by Boker, I suppose. Although Boker, I believe, are mainly made in Germany, and Boker Plus are usually either China or Taiwan, and Magnum by Boker I think are almost exclusively made in China. Just how it is. But this one I was incredibly excited about when I first seen it, because I really like this pattern, because at least to me it's rather unusual. This is the one-arm razor, if I'm not mistaken. So these knives were designed back in the day, early 1900s I believe, for people with, well, it's in the name, one arm. So I've actually made a video on this. I gave my thoughts and I just took some pot shots at what I thought the reasons behind that name was, or why they were here. And my assumption was, well, it's the 1900s, you've had the American Civil War, you've got the Industrial Revolution. People are getting their arms shot off and blown off and torn off by the machinery, so you've got a lot of men missing an arm. And thumb holes and thumb studs weren't a thing back then, so this was a solution. So I guess you could say they were actually catering to disabled people. And I think that's still relevant today. Yeah, we've got thumb studs and that, but this is cool. I love this, and most importantly, it is extremely well made. It is beautiful. Now, admittedly, the Rough Rider Reserves are a little bit more, or quite a bit more if I'm honest, more expensive than the standard Rough Riders. Some Rough Riders are as cheap as £6. Now, when I first seen the Rough Rider Reserves, I basically thought, for the hell with that, I'm not paying all that for a crummy Chinese Rough Rider. When I saw this, I wasn't too happy at the price tag, but I bit the bullet and went for it, and oh my god, I'm hooked. I love this knife. I've always loved traditionals. You people who are familiar with my channel, who have been with me for a while and subscribed, you know that my absolute favourites are Swiss Army knives. You know I'm a bit of a sucker for that, but you'll also know how much I love traditionals. This is one of those traditionals that's kind of harder to find. Most companies aren't making something like this. I think a handful of the American companies are making these, but my god, they're so expensive. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but they're expensive, and they're not really any stockists of that knife in the UK, and I don't really feel like importing one from America because additional costs and taxes, and border force might get sticky fingers and it might just find its way into the grinder, and I'd be heartbroken, of course. So I avoid doing that. But anyway, these are about £60, so quite a bit of difference between this and this. So this is, well, this is 3 times the price of this. Is it 3 times the quality? Maybe not 3 times the quality, but it's certainly a lot higher quality. You'll be hard pressed to find any issues with this knife. I did say before that there's almost no gaps in the rest. Look at this. Isn't that just almost, well, pretty close to perfect? Now, that blue denim micarta, I absolutely love it. It does definitely look like a pair of jeans. It looks a lot like the jeans I wear. That shield as well. I mean, everything. There's nothing I don't like about this knife. It is just lovely. The grind, just everything about it. Can you tell that I like it? Can you tell that I'm excited by it? So do I think these Rough Rider Reserve knives are worth that extra money? Yes. And I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion of Rough Rider right here and now. I absolutely love them. Are they worth their money? 95% of them, absolutely. You might get a dud or one that's kind of crap, or it'll make you regret it. Look, send it back, get a new one, whatever. Rough Rider, I've got to be honest with you, at first I didn't like them. And the whole made in China thing does put me off a little bit, but all of that aside, these are extremely well made knives, and I'm not shilling for China. I know someone's going to say that. I have my issues with that side of things, if you like. All that aside, these are really, really nice knives. Honestly, they really are. And for quality control, and I think some of you might not like this, although I think most of you will appreciate the comparisons with other knives. So here is a case knife. Now this is probably one of the better made case knives. It's pretty flawless. So I guess I'm just doing this for transparency. So in terms of quality, I'm going to be honest, these are about the same. Although this is an £80 knife and this is a £60 knife. Now if you were to buy a knife like this made by a company like Case, it's going to cost you at least £150–200. Yeah, you've got that made in America factor, which I'm a fan of. I love the Case knives, so I'm glad they're made in America. But I've got to be honest, some of the Case knives aren't so great, and I actually completely forgot to grab my one Case knife that I think the quality really isn't good on. That said, if you are interested in that, watch my video on this, the Queen Barlow, because I compare this to my Case gun stock. This is nicer than the Case. Now the wood on the Case, the curly maple, is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I love it. This has overall better fit and finish, and that is a knife that I spent £90 on, handmade in America, versus this £20 handmade in China. It's hard to argue with that, I'm sorry, but it is. Case closed, I suppose. Pun not intended. In fact, here's another one just for quality control issues. Now, I have to admit to you straight away, this is about... oh, this actually was one of the first knives that I got. How old is this? How long have I been collecting knives? I've probably had this about 7 years. So yes, it has some wear on it. I decided to let the blade get a patina on it. That aside, the fit there isn't quite as nice. The fit and finish isn't quite as nice. This is made in Sheffield, England. And £20 for this, handmade in Sheffield, England. £20 for this, handmade in China. I like to buy British knives. I'm from the UK. I'm from Scotland, but I'm still from the UK. Made in Sheffield. I like UK made knives. I try to make a point of buying UK made knives, kind of just out of principle, because I think you should support your local economy. I think you should support your local shops, your local tradesmen, that sort of thing. That to me is kind of important to me. But I'm sorry, this does beat it out. Some of you patriotic people, if you like, and I'm not trying to upset anyone with this video, I'm genuinely not, I'm just trying to be honest. These knives are, let me just check the time, sorry. These knives are extremely well made. Okay, let's look at this one now. Again, this is a £20 knife. Tell me what's wrong with that. And I've done a video on this. Is it perfect? No. Is it gorgeous? Yes. Is it impractical? Whatever. It's not very practical. How about that? Is it a nice collector's item? Absolutely. Is it a nice display item? Definitely. Are knives like this hard to find? 110% yes. The American companies making these knives are charging about 200, I don't know if it's pounds, maybe it's, yeah, it's dollars, $200. That's probably about £270, roughly. Just pulling numbers out of the air at the moment. Couldn't afford that. This, how much do you think this is? That's just bone, by the way, nothing too fancy, just bone. And this is just your usual 440. £20. I don't know why I'm doing it like this, because I already told you I'm just excited about these knives. I just love them. £20 for that. I'm sorry, but this is one of those knives that's an absolute must. It's another one of those knives that I was very reluctant to get, and then my girlfriend got me as a present one day. Oh my god, I fell in love with this knife, and not just because she gave it to me. Now, she does give me a lot of knives, and that to me is, well, I like that. Those knives are special because she bought them for me as a gift. This is a really nice knife. I wish I got one sooner. I'll just put that one down for now, and we'll just go to another knife. In fact, let's just go straight to the other, the only Rough Rider fixed blade that I own at the moment, because I do plan on changing that. Mixed feelings on it, and then we'll look at the other, I think it's another 2 Rough Riders. We might look at a couple other knives for comparisons, I'm not sure yet, we'll see. I forgot what model this is. It's a sort of bushcraft hunting type knife. I think these were about £15, and again it's another one that the girlfriend got me as a present just randomly because she likes to just throw knives at me. Nylon sheath, kind of cheesy. Does it work? Yeah. Can you carry it? Probably. Will it keep your knife safe? Yes. I don't see it being any issues. The threads might come undone. You've got a little pocket for, well, I'm not really sure what. Maybe a little sharpening stone, a crappy survival kit, some matches, whatever. I wouldn't really want this to be your primary survival knife. That's kind of stiff, kind of flexible. Here it is though. It is a good shape. It is comfortable. It does work, but it does dull really quickly. So you absolutely need to take a sharpener with you. I've not been out with this knife yet. I might someday. For 15 quid you can't go wrong. How strong that is, I don't know, but it certainly would make a nice display item. Now, I would only really care about the sheath when carrying it. Any other time, like if it's just, well, if you're displaying it, you wouldn't display it with the sheath because the sheath just looks like puke. This does look like a really nice, maybe not well made, but it does make a nice display item. I have no idea what kind of wood that is. It almost looks like some sort of burr wood. It's almost certainly not, especially at the price of this. It does have a nice look. It does feel kind of nice. It is quite smooth. Only issue with this one, well, there's a few issues. It's got that crack all the way up there. If I'm honest, I'm not too concerned, especially at the price of this knife. And we've got some gaps there at the bolsters as well. Other than that, although this is my only Rough Rider fixed blade knives, I think it's quite good. I think the rest of them will also be quite good, but that's remain to be seen. You know what, I've only got 1 or 2 accessories by Rough Rider, and I'll just do that quickly before moving on to the other 2 knives. This is a leather sheath. Now apparently this is real leather. Off of what animal, I don't know. It's really not a nice piece of leather. I do have nice leather slips and this is not one of them. It feels strong though. I don't think it's going to tear. I think it'll last, but it's really stiff and not in a good way. I do appreciate the eyelet there though for attaching leather or a chain or something. It seems fairly well stitched for what you pay for. I mean, this was only £4 or £5 and it works. I actually bought it on the off chance that I do decide to carry this. It actually fits fine. And I think you'll be able to fit your 1 or 2 layer Swiss Army knives in there too. The main purpose of a slip is of course to protect your knives, something getting scratched. And give it a little bit extra friction in the pocket to stop your knife falling out. These are not made in China, these are made in Pakistan, just so you know. Whether or not that makes a difference to you, whatever. The leather is not great quality. Would I buy another one? Probably, I don't know. Not got any plans in the immediate future, but Rough Rider slip, Rough Rider knife, sure, why not. Right, I'll just show you this little brass lock back. I've only got 2 lock knives by Rough Rider. The last one I'm going to show you is one that I'm also extremely excited about, and it's also a Rough Rider Reserve. Another one that I forgot the name of. I'm yet to do a video on this. I will. And again, most of these I've done videos on. If I haven't, well, I will eventually. This is just a little thing that's almost entirely brass. The handles are all brass. How much do you think this little, I'm very clumsy, how much do you think this little thing costs? That was £8, and for £8 you really cannot go wrong. Again, it's not really a strong knife, it's not a beater knife. Could you use this every day? Well, if our laws weren't so unreasonable, I probably would. It would make a nice little fifth pocket jean, a fifth pocket carry, I should say. It would pair up nicely with a bigger knife, or a fixed blade or something like that. I think this is just, for me at least, it's a nice little knife for at home. Didn't come very sharp, but again, it's a Rough Rider, it's not hard to sharpen, and it's £8. And if you want an even cheaper one, you can get one that's just steel for £5, or maybe it was £4, I don't remember. And that lock does work. It's not just there for show, it actually does work. I'm saying that because I do have another knife that another lock back, and the lock basically doesn't work at all. And the final knife, and I should mention these polishing cloths, I think they come with all the Rough Riders. It's just a nice little touch to help you keep your knife clean, and it gives you a little bit of a background to take a photo of your knives with. These come with all the Rough Rider knives, Rough Rider reserve knives. I only have 2 reserve knives, so I've got 2 of these. And in fact, here's one of the tins. All the reserve knives come in these. They come in a cardboard box, and the knife is in this with foam and grease paper. So they really are well packaged. It's quite nice. I think it's quite thoughtful of them. And the final Rough Rider knife I have here is this rhino's toe. Not an elephant's toe, not a sunfish. This is a rhino's toe. And that's another thing I like about Rough Rider. They're really interested in what they make. They make traditional knives that are quite traditional, like this. So they've not modified this in any way. This is just a traditional as it should be. They also make some more unusual traditionals like these that most other companies won't actually make due to whatever reason. But if you notice, this and this look very similar. Now, what makes this one so special? Well, take note of this, and again, although this is an unusual knife, this was an older design. I believe these are from the 1800s, where, if I'm not mistaken, sailors would use these knives to split rope. The reason it's so thick, from what I understand, is they would use it like this and hit it with a mallet to cut thick rope. Okay, so that was a traditional knife. That is a historical knife, if you like. This, what makes this significant? What's different about it? Well, this is one of the things that gets me really excited about Rough Rider, especially the Rough Rider Reserves. Have a look at that. Yeah, a Wharncliffe and whatever you want to call that. Absolutely gorgeous. Expensive though. This is like 4 or 5 times the price of that. Again, that's £20. These are £80. But are they worth it? And again, my girlfriend gave me this as a gift. It's such a beautiful knife. I'm not going to say any more on that. I've already showed you too much. I'm so excited about this one. Now, this is number 6. If you have a look, and I have to be quick here before I run out of time, and I'm sorry I went on so long, but this is just so much fun to talk about these. And do let me know if you made it to the end. I don't know if you could see that, RRR006. So this is the 6th reserve knife. There is a 7th, which is a lock back. I may or may not get that. I only have 2 of them, so I've got the number 1 and the number 6. I would like to get the kayak, which is basically a modified canoe. I think that's the 3rd reserve knife. I would like to get the other ones if I possibly can. We'll just see about that. What's my time on now? 34 minutes. Well, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Sorry it was so long. Again, please do let me know if you did get to the end. I appreciate you sticking with me if you did. I absolutely love Rough Rider knives. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on Rough Rider knives, and what's your favourite Rough Rider knife? Thanks, and I'll see you later.